Hey guys, Bgrim here. So today's video is going to be part one of what basically is going to be a four-part series. I'm going to be reviewing the original 1978 John Carpenter film Halloween. I'm going to review the sequel, Halloween 2. And then I'm going to review the Rob Zombie versions, each in their own separate video. Now these are going to be spoiler videos, and that will be, in the title, in the description. But a couple things first. Number one, this is probably the first time I've posted on a Wednesday in quite a while. Oops. Hopefully I'll have the chance to get better at this. August 18th. A bit of a jump ahead in timeline, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about it because August 18th is the anniversary of women's suffrage in the US. And I kind of want to do something special for it, kind of make something out of it. I feel like that would be a good thing to do. I kind of feel like, I feel like it's something that people just don't talk about enough. Women's suffrage is a huge deal when you really stop and think about the fact that it's been less than a century since women have had the right to vote. So, I'll update more as I think of things. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. It's on my Facebook. I do have a new Facebook page, facebook.com stars and galaxies, Indy, no A, just like with my Instagram and my Twitter. This idea is on all of my social media platforms, so if one of them is more convenient, please use that and let's talk. Let's get a discussion going. So yeah, now before I really get into the review, I'm going to be very honest. I'm a lot more familiar with the Rob Zombie versions of the film, because I actually really enjoy them. I get it, not everyone does, but Rob Zombie appeals to me. His humor appeals to me. I like his movies. So, I haven't seen the new one yet. I'm hoping to do that within the next month or two. And of course, I will post a review. But anyway, so I'm actually more familiar with the Rob Zombie movies. I have seen the original Halloweens, but honestly, I find them kind of boring because they're sort of slow. So the 1978 version, the original Halloween from 1978, was sort of a breakthrough. It's sort of the start of a brand new genre. Slasher films were kind of given a new life. Everything that came after was just trying to copy the Halloween formula, which kind of confused the crap out of me, because I had heard that. And then I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, I would literally rather watch just about any other slasher film. Now, please understand that this is a personal opinion. Technically speaking, I think the movie's good. Plot-wise, I have a few questions, but mostly it's okay. It's just slow compared to maybe, I don't know, Friday the 13th. And even that one's kind of slow. We all know that I have this thing where I hate slow movies. I don't do well with slow paces in films, which I will get to also in my classic horror film review when I talk about The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Because that movie frustrates the crap out of me. I don't do well with slow movies. I still haven't managed to finish the original Amityville movie. And I probably should. So anyway, the 1978 Halloween. It starts off on Halloween, a good 10 years, what is it, good 15 years. Got my notes here. It starts a good 15 years before the movie is actually set, when we get to watch a very young, I believe 6-year-old Michael Myers kill his sister Judith. Now, I kind of understood that one. I won't lie, I did kind of understand why the kid killed his older sister. I mean, she did kind of ignore him, and her boyfriend kind of seemed like a bit of a dick. But anyway, Michael stabs his sister to death. That clown costume is really clean for having been, worn by someone who's stabbing a much older person to death. And Michael, of course, we see outside wearing the clown costume and the mask and holding the knife. So Michael gets into a psychiatric ward. Now, apparently, when the movie picks up again, he escapes from the psychiatric hospital, Warren County Smith's Grove Sanitarium. Supposedly, when he's escaping, he steals a car meant to take him to his court date. First off, I did not notice that. I remember the nurse, and mainly because I sent my friend, the mother of monsters, she is a nurse, I sent her a picture and said, you could dress up your kid as Michael Myers, and you could go as the nurse. She actually thought that was a great idea, but that's not what they ended up doing. But I did not notice that, so I was a little surprised when I was reading, when I was getting my notes in order and found that. And second of all, if this guy killed someone when he was 6 and was committed to a psychiatric hospital, why is he going to court at the age of 21? That's how old he is now. Like, I'm not familiar with law, with how criminal justice is prosecuted and how it affects minors and the mentally unstable. So I'm not sure if that's like standard procedure or if that was back in the 70s. But anyway, Michael escapes, steals a car, goes back to Haddonfield, where we get to meet our original final girl, Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis in what I believe is her very first film, or her first major film. I'm not sure which. I know she was also in Prom Night, which was kind of a fun watch, I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed it. Laurie is the stereotypical all-American girl next door. She's sweet, she's funny, she's all around a good girl. Unfortunately, her friends are not. Her friends are your stereotypical teenagers, into sex, illicit drugs, and, booze, or whatever it is that they're into. It's Halloween, and one by one, Laurie's friends are picked off by Michael, who is being hunted down by one of Laurie's friends' father, the sheriff, whose name is so not coming to me. Notes. I think that says Lee Brackett. And the psychiatrist, Dr. Loomis, who has been working on Michael's case for years now. There's a really good scene in the movie, and it was one that I did like, where Loomis is talking about how Michael is pure evil. That I kind of liked. And that's the thing, there's a lot of things about this movie that I like, but we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead of myself. One by one, Laurie's friends are getting killed off. One of her friends, Linda. One of her friends, Linda, is killed while she is on the phone with Laurie. So Laurie, being suspicious, and it being the late 70s, so, you couldn't just, I don't know, do something on your phone to figure this out. So Laurie goes over to check it out. And of course finds her friends dead and is attacked by Michael. She runs back to the house across the street where she's babysitting. Michael sneaks in through a window. He attacks. She gets the kids out. Dr. Loomis saves the day, but then Michael is vanished. Loomis shoots him multiple times, and he goes to look where Michael's body fell, and there's nothing. And the implication is that he could be anywhere. So, things that I liked, things that I didn't like. Let's see. Of course, we've talked about the slow pace. Now, once we really get into the movie, it's not so slow. The killings kind of come in fairly good succession. That doesn't change the fact that the first half of the movie is pretty much boring. You have the one kill in the very beginning. And actually you have another one when Michael breaks out of the jail. But by and large, you're focusing on Laurie, which, she's our main character. We should be focusing on her, but she is, as stated, a girl next door kind of character. She's not terribly unique in that regards. Jamie Lee Curtis plays her beautifully, and she's not a boring character. She just lives a very boring life with stereotypical friends doing stereotypical teenage things, and Laurie just happens to be the best behaved of the group with, for whatever reason. It makes for a very dull first half, when literally all you're watching is a bunch of teenagers. I'm not a huge fan of teen movies. I'm not a huge fan of teen characters. I wasn't very fond of my own teen years. Looking back on them, I was a bit of a pretentious twit. And even if I hadn't been, the people my age who were around me weren't much better. Now, granted, I did spend most of my time hanging out with the musical theater nerds, which is always a fun experience. But by and large, teenagers are teenagers. Their problems are primarily caused by their surroundings and the fact that they don't know how to handle them. And the authority figures are generally too busy being authoritative to actually pay attention to the problem. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that when you're 16, you feel like nobody understands you. And it's really hard to get past that. The second half of the movie, like I said, the pacing's a lot better. I don't get as bored. The kills are good. The kills are pretty creative. I especially liked the one where Michael was in the backseat of the car and he slits Annie's throat. That one I particularly liked. the character of Dr. Loomis, the psychiatrist who's genuinely just trying to help. I will talk about this a lot more when we get to the Rob Zombie remakes, but the character from the Rob Zombie films, in his initial incarnation, he's pretty true to the original in that he's genuinely trying to minimize the damage and be helpful. In the second movie, he's a dick. Which kind of lowers the enjoyment factor for this particular character. In regards to the originals, Dr. Loomis doesn't exactly change a whole lot. But then the original two movies are taking place in a much shorter span of time. Which we'll talk about in the next film, because in the next review, because it's the next film. I would have liked if they had have explained why Michael was so interested in Laurie, why he specifically was stalking her. They do later, but it's not in this movie. It's in the second one. And I would have liked to see it in this one. Because otherwise, he's just this vague, menacing figure. And you're not sure what his motive is. I remember when I first watched the original complaining to my best friend that, with all of these other slashers, I know the motive. With Jason, it was, these camp counselors weren't doing their job, they let him drown, and then these stupid kids killed his mom. That was his motive. In the first movie, it's Mama Voorhees. In the second movie, it's Jason. I will put a note in there, spoilers for, in Freddy Krueger, in Nightmare on Elm Street, we know that Freddy Krueger's motive was that, these people had killed him. We find out their motive in the movie that they are killing in. Not the sequel. Halloween was the one where you found out in the sequel what the motive is. And that was excruciatingly frustrating for me, because I have a very bad habit of judging my characters on their personality, their growth, and their motives. Because, I don't know if you've all seen that little meme, cool motive, still murder. Sometimes motive gives you an insight into the character. You need to understand it. You need to know why they are the way they are. Because otherwise, you're just sitting there going, so what's the point? It's like with the Harry Potter books. Reading them and wondering for the first few, why is Snape such an ass? And then finding out. And then you find out that's not even correct. For the record, I don't like the character of Severus Snape. It's not that I don't like the character, it's that I don't like how people try to justify his actions and make him out to be a hero when this is a man who emotionally tormented his students. I don't care how brave he is, there is no cause for him to emotionally torment an 11-year-old child who has no recourse for defense. I'm not talking about Harry. I'm talking about Neville. I will not forget this. But still, I like to know my character's motives. I like to know why they're doing these things, because otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. You could literally have them do anything, and it makes no sense. Yeah. It's not a bad movie. It's certainly not a bad film. I think it's a very good film. I definitely think it's a great movie to watch when you're not too worried about missing anything for the first 45 minutes. Because the really good stuff doesn't come until nightfall, basically. Once that happens, it's a lot of fun. It's just the beginning parts that I have trouble focusing on. Again, this is a personal thing. I had the same problem with The Babadook. The last part of the movie was riveting. The beginning was a bit slow. Okay, maybe it was a lot slow. But that one I had a connection where it wasn't quite as frustrating that it was slow. It was slow, but I sympathized with one of the characters because she reminded me so much of the mother of monsters. She reminded me of my friend who is also a nurse and who is also a single mother. Now, that's about where the similarities end. You know, they're both nurses, they both work with elderly patients, and they both have kids. And are single parents. That's kind of the end of the similarities. But the point here is that I have seen the troubles that my friend goes through raising her kids alone, so I sympathized and empathized a little bit better with the character. So it wasn't so boring. It was still boring, it just wasn't as bad. With Laurie Strode's character, I'll be honest. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled largely of my own volition. I didn't want to go to public school. Part of this, as I said, is because I was a pretentious twit. Part of this is because, as I've said, I didn't exactly get along with the kids my age, outside of the musical theater nerds. And part of this was just that I didn't want to. I didn't want to go to public school. I didn't want to deal with the drama and the nonsense that my friends who were in public school were telling me about. That's not what I wanted to deal with. I didn't want to deal with school in general, and I certainly didn't want to deal with that nonsense. So it's a lot harder for me to really empathize with Laurie Strode's character. With that said, there's nothing wrong with the character, and I do enjoy it. So, in terms of scares, I don't even know what to rate this movie yet in terms of scares. But in terms of overall enjoyment, we'll give it an 8 out of 10. It's not my favorite. It isn't on my must-watch again list, but it's a good movie. I think everyone should probably watch it at least once, if only because it is the original. And I'm certainly not going to change the channel if it's on, unless there's something better on. Which, we all know television, there usually isn't. So, it's enjoyable, it's a little slow, but it's definitely good to see how the slasher genre was born. And it's not a half-bad movie. I really like there are several aspects of it that I really like. Like I said, I like when Annie's killed. I like the headstone thing. I completely forgot about that. With the headstone in the bed. That I liked. So, like I said, 8 out of 10. Would probably watch again, but I'm not actively going to seek it out. And I do suggest that you watch it at least once, just so you can say you've seen it. As always, like and subscribe, leave me comments. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and now on Facebook as Stars in D Galaxies. And on Tumblr as Wednesday's Child's Witchcraft. Like and subscribe, follow me on social media, and creep it real, Gremlings. Creep it real.